Hey guys, welcome to Code a Moment, and today we're going to be talking about utilizing Flexbox in our website and just getting a bit more understanding of how it works. So in this example here, we just have 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, and in our HTML document we have the wrapping container, which is a section with an ID of container, and within that we have the columns themselves, and within that we have the contents. So now to start using Flexbox layout, all we have to do is to call upon display flex on the parent element. So let's go ahead and do that in our style.css. Save that. And what that's going to do is going to stack it next to each other side by side. Now let's say we want those items to stretch the whole of the container. All we need to do is to call upon each individual element, which is .col, and put in flex. Now this flex property can only be used when you're inside a container with display flex set. And it has to be the immediate children of that container to be able to utilize the flex property. Now this flex property comes with 3 arguments. It comes with flex grow, which means whether you want your items to take up a remaining space. The second argument is flex shrink, whether you want your item to shrink as the containing element reduces in size. And flex basis means how much of the width do you want to take up of the container. So default values are 0 for no, you don't want it to grow, 1, yes, you want it to shrink, and auto sizing for the flex basis. We save that, it's going to look exactly the same. At this moment we don't have much contents for our elements, so we're going to go ahead and to populate the first element with some dummy text and see how that changes the behavior of our layout. So if we go to our HTML document here and just alter the first column to have a p tag with lorem ipsum text, and we save it, as you can see the first column has spanned the majority of the width, and that's because we've set flex basis as auto, and it's just going to auto size based on what's inside the element. So let's say you want them all to be equal in size. All we need to do is to adjust the flex basis to, let's say, 33%. And 33% is calculated by 100% divided by 3, because we have 3 columns here, and that would give us 33.33% and so on. But I've just simplified it to 33% and just save it. And you can see they're all equal in size. So if we just reduce that, it's going to be responsive. Great. So now we have that. Let's just remove the shrink property and see what happens. So we just update that, and as you can see it overflows outside of the container, and that's because we also have padding of 2 rem and border of 1 pixel. So if we go ahead and remove that, you can see that it's back and nicely inside the container. But the issue here is we still have some white space on the right side here, and that's easy to fix. All we need to do is to target the flex grow value here and remove the 0, which is no, you don't want it to grow. It was 1, yes, you want to grow. You save that, it's going to span the whole width. Alright, so let's say we replace 33 here with 10. So you want 10 width placed on all of these elements here, and we go ahead and update that. It's going to look exactly the same as what we just saw, and that's because flex grow was into it. So if we go ahead and remove that, it's going to default back to its original sizing of 10%. Okay, so let's go ahead and change the last value here to 100%. We do that, you can see they're all, each individual elements are now 100% basis. They're going to span the whole of the container and protrude outside of the container. But if we want it to be inside the container, we just need to flex shrink it 1, and you can see it shrinks back into original state to be inside of the container. So let's go ahead and put back the padding and the border. And it's looking good. Looking good now. So now we know a little bit of how it works. Let's just test it out one more time. Let's put the flex bases as pixels now. So let's say each of these are 300 pixels, and we save that. And as you can see, without the flex grow, it's not going to span the whole width, but there's still a flex shrink in here. So let's test it out. Go down, they're all going to shrink. It's going to be responsive. And that's how it really works when you're playing with the flex property and utilizing all of the values, flex grow and flex shrink, and then the basis. So now that we have a little bit more understanding of how it works, if you ever plan to enable flex grow and flex shrink at the same time, so both with a value of 1, then it really doesn't matter what you input as the flex basis value, as long as it's not auto, because auto would be auto sizing. Then your items would just grow and either expand the whole width or just shrink down to be contained within that container. Now let's say you optimize this, you go down and you want them to stack. All we need to do is to call upon the flex wrap property with a wrap value. So we do that, you can see it's already stacking, and that's because the threshold has already been reached. So by default, it tries to put as many items as it can in one row that has 33% with padding of 2 rem and a border of 1 pixel. But in this case, the threshold has already been reached, so that's why you're seeing 2 columns here in the first row and 1 item in the second row. But if we change this value to 20%, you're going to see that they're all in one row, and that's because they can all be in one row. It hasn't reached the threshold yet of 20% plus the padding of 2 rem plus the border of 1 pixel. But if we resize that down, you can see that the breaking point has broken here and it stacks, and it will continue to stack when it reaches the threshold. So that's really how it works when utilizing flex wrap with the flex property here. And just before we finish up on this section here, a little hint is when you're working with the flex property and you know that you're going to utilize the flex grow and the flex shrink, you can actually remove these 2 values here and just save it. It's going to be exactly the same. It's going to auto populate those values for you for the flex grow and flex shrink, and you just need to call upon the flex basis. So that's your shorthand version, and yeah, I find it useful. Alright, now let's talk about the alignments of our items. Now we're going to start with the vertical alignment. So we'll just go ahead and remove flex wrap and just declare align items property, and this will control the vertical alignment. By default, the value is stretch. As you can see, each element is stretched. So if we save that, nothing changes. But if we change this value to flex start, it's going to go to the top. If we go to the end, it's flex end. And it also has center for centering. Okay, let's touch on horizontal alignment. And the property for that is justify content. And the values are pretty similar to align items. Let's just start with flex start. But you can't see anything happening right now. And that's because each of these items here, they have flex grow. So if we go ahead, remove flex grow from each item. So I'm just going to go 0 for grow, 1 for shrink. We just save it. As you can see, it's aligned to the left. But if we change this flex start to flex end, it's going to align it to the right. And if we just change it to center, it's going to be centered. There's also other useful values like space between. If we save that, it's going to take the available space distributed between the outer left and right elements. And if we go space around, it's going to distribute the space evenly around each item. Okay, And if it's spaced evenly, it's going to distribute space evenly outside of the items. That's the gist of the alignments. Alright, now let's talk about the main axis of the Flexbox layout. Now by default, these items here, they're in an inline direction. But let's say you want them to be in a block direction. All we need to do is to specify the flex direction property with the value of column. So if we update this, all of the items are going to stack. Now a few things to note when we are inside this main axis is that the align items is changing from vertical alignment to horizontal alignment. So if we go ahead and update this from center to flex start, it's going to align it to the left. Flex end will align it to the right, and we just go back to center. So that would mean that justify content is now the vertical alignment. So if we go ahead and update this to flex end, it should align it to the bottom. So if we save that, nothing's happened, and that's because we need to specify a height for this container. So if we go ahead and specify a height for this, height of 850 pixels, so background color of, let's say, black. So you can see what's happening here. So you can see it's aligning it to the bottom. So if we update this justify content to center, you can see that it's working. And we'll just change this to space between. So you can see it's working accordingly. Okay, now another thing to note is that the flex property for the third argument here, flex spaces, used to refer to the width of each item here. But now it's pertaining to the height of these elements now. So if we go ahead and we change this to 400 pixels, you can see that there is still inside this container and equal in height, and that's because we have shrink on it. So if we remove shrink, flex shrink, you can see that they are overflowing outside of the container now. So it's working exactly the same as it used to be in the other main axis, but now we are inside flex direction column. So that's the gist of changing the main axis of the Flexbox layout. In this section, we're going to be talking about the ordering of our flex items. Now, to start off with, we're going to be talking about the order property. By default, these flex items here have a value of 0 for the order property. Now, let's say that we want to rearrange the order and have 2, 1, and 3. So we can go ahead and target the second column and declare the order property with a value of 0. Now this would be the default value. Now for the first item we're going to put 1. For the third one we're going to put 2. We go ahead and save it. As you can see, it has adjusted accordingly in the front view. So we'll go 2, 1, and 3. In summary, it's going to go in sequential order. So the lowest number will appear first. Alright, now let's just revert back to normal. Save that. Let's say that we want the third item to be the first item. We can go ahead and target the third column, declare order property with a value of -1, update, and as you can see, the third item is now the first position. And this is because by default 1 and 2 have an order value of 0. So -1 is less than 0. So -1, 0, and 0. So that's how it works. Alright, let's remove that and save. Okay, now let's say that we want to reverse the order. So 3, 2, and 1. We can use the reverse value that comes in flex direction. Now we are currently in the block direction, so column. So we're going to go ahead and put dash reverse. Column dash reverse. So we save that. As you can see, it goes 3, 2, and 1. The same can also be said for the inline direction, which is flex direction row. Now as you can see, they're going to be 1, 2, and 3 in a row. And if we want to reverse it, row dash reverse. And as simple as that. But when we're working with the ordering capabilities of the Flexbox layout, It's important to understand that using it may impact the accessibility on your website. So when we're adjusting the ordering of our flex items, we're not actually changing anything in our source code. It's only happening visually. To see it more into perspective and how it can impact the accessibility of your website, we'll go ahead and add links to each of these flex items. So let's just revert it back to normal. Flex direction row. Okay, and go into our index.html and just add in links. Okay, now that we have links in here, let's just update the styling for each link so we can see what's going on. We'll give it a color of white and put display block because currently it's inline. We'll save it. Okay. So now let's test it out. What happens normally when, let's say, a user navigating the website using the tab key. So if I go ahead and use the tab key, tab, it goes from left to right. Okay. Now let's say we wanted to reverse the order. So flex direction row, then we're going to do dash reverse. It's going to reverse the order. Now let's say this is the actual order that you wanted your items to be in. So if a user using the tab key would navigate your website and they use the tab keys as follows, it's going to start from the right, as you can see. And that's going to impact accessibility. You know, it's going to confuse them. They may not be able to find out where they are. They may get lost. So it's important to factor that in when utilizing the ordering capabilities of the Flexbox layout. So a way to mitigate this is to actually just adjust your source code and not to adjust the ordering through CSS. You'll need to do it through the document itself so that it doesn't impact the accessibility, because what they see visually doesn't translate to the code itself. And that pretty much covers all of the ordering of the Flexbox. That's it for our video today. Please give this video a thumbs up and comment down if you found it helpful, and don't forget to subscribe.